And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we're going to be talking about Snowfall Season 5, Episode number 4. If you've not hit the sub button, please do so. Leave a like, leave a comment, and full spoilers ahead. Um, Sissy's back, man. That's sort of the big part of this episode, and what comes with that. That being a lot of somewhat mystery. She comes back in, seems like something's off, but you're not really sure what exactly. She, announces that she wants sort of in the business. She, wants to get closer with Franklin and everything. And, she learns that Teddy's back. She blames Teddy for the death of Alton. And in the end, we learn that she's working with somebody and has every intent on taking Teddy out of the picture. At least she does. Now, this group she's working with, I'm not so sure. But any thoughts on where the hell that's going? I mean, every time this show is on a path, and you're like, okay, I know where it's going. They throw something at you, and this is a pretty big thing to be thrown at us. So, thoughts on the return of Sissy?
As soon as I saw her, I didn't know who she was working with or who she was working for, and I didn't know if it was my initial assumption, and I don't know 100% that I'm wrong yet or not, is the Alton stuff. I felt like somebody had Alton, and they were like, "Hey, you help us bring down your son, and we can, give you Alton back." And then as the episode progressed, I was like, well, maybe not. And then it felt like you were saying she wants revenge on Teddy for fucking over Alton, but at what expense? Is she going to take her son down, or is she like, hey, if you give him immunity, you can take everybody else? I don't care. So her story, as soon as I saw her, I was like, how is she going to try and fuck over Franklin, and why?
That is the big question, because my initial instincts when she sat with a guy and met with him in secret was, okay, yeah, this is like a media person, like the reporter from last season. But then she started talking about having Teddy killed. And, that was kind of the thing that made me think, like, well, who is this then? This probably isn't like a rival agency or something, and it's not the media, because, NBC or anybody can't have him killed, so...
I don't know, man.
Is she working with a foreign government, or is she working with just is she personally hiring some people to do this, or is it or is it gonna tie into the other side of the Iran Contra stuff? That she's working with the other side to expose and kill Teddy, as an act of revenge.
I'm guessing foreign government of some kind, only the way they were speaking. It was like, we've made contact. What's the next step? It feels like it's that. And even the guy seemed a little, because she was like talking about Teddy, and he seemed like he's like, well, we got to, be careful with how we, deal with that, because he is a government guy. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who they are, and what her plan is, and what her if she's working with them, what's her mission? What's her what, you know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know.
I think taking Teddy out would create, because maybe that guy's working for, because all the Nicaraguan stuff, they were trying to feed the rebels weapons and stuff to fight this guerrilla war. Maybe he's from the Nicaraguan government and trying to take Teddy out, and fight it from that direction.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we're gonna get a flashback episode with Sissy the same way we did with Teddy, but probably towards the end of the season, where we see, like, after what happened to Alton, what did she do? Where did she go?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Because it was funny, because they didn't give us the reveal until the very final scene, but you could tell something was off the whole time, even before she found out Teddy was back. There was the meeting where they were, discussing things with her, and you could just tell, like, the way she was playing it, like there was something else going on, something else in her mind, and I wasn't quite sure what that was. I assumed it had to do with Alton in some way, but I wasn't really sure. Um, we get what sort of ties into that, and I wanted to bring up Leon because we get a police crackdown. Buckley is trying to, basically buck up and say, give me what I want or I can make your life hell. And so there's a police raid and, they come in there, beat everybody up. And this leads to a meeting with Avi where, Leon's like, look, I want weapons. I'm going to take care of shit myself. Now, Avi's giving him little warnings, basically saying, look, if you escalate it that way, you're probably going to die. But then he has a meeting with Sissy, and it almost felt like she was telling him to chill out and like, hey, I got plans that can help you. I don't know if she told him everything, but it looks like she may be looking at him as potentially someone to bring in with whatever it is she's got going on.
Yeah, at the very least, she is definitely trying to get him to back off because it and potentially, like you said, because it ruins whatever she's got going. I don't know whether or not she thinks that she can bring him. She might think that because like it's hard to say because him and Franklin are very close, but Franklin, while necessarily he's not necessarily a different person. Previously they didn't all know what Franklin was capable of, and they're all very aware of that. And she may know that at one point Leon was at a point where he wanted out of this whole thing, and Sissy might give him an out. That said, I feel like her actions, just not necessarily with Leon, but due to what Franklin's would you say girlfriend or fiance at this point, or have they said what they are?
Yeah, they're not getting married yet. I think they did say that, but yeah, sure. Basically,
I feel like Sissy's going to get her killed is the thing, because Franklin's going to see that, okay, there are leaks here, or, some people know more than they should. And he's going to be like, well, who have I told? He's like, only my mom and my girlfriend. And I know my mom wouldn't rat me out, so it may be that situation where Sissy gets her killed because Franklin suspects her. Or heck, this may be Sissy's last season for all we know, depending on how cold Franklin is.
Yeah, that one's a tough nut to crack, because when you look at what he said to Louis, talking about family and how there isn't anything he wouldn't do to basically be number one. And then, so that would lead me to believe that he would be willing to throw Sissy under the bus if it meant, not just survival, but for him being, rising to the top. But then he also told his girlfriend that the only people he cares about right now are the kid and her. So does that mean that he will sell anybody else down the street? Because like you said, is he going to side with his mom, believing that she wouldn't do anything and take his girlfriend out, or is he going to do the opposite and he's going to be responsible for his mom dying because he keeps telling her no, keep telling her to stop, and then she just has a vendetta now against Teddy? So at the end, is she going to seal her own fate by trying to fuck over her son? To me, it could go either way. And this show does such a good job of writing that I don't know which way I would rather it go, just for potential conflicts for future seasons. Like, I don't know which way I'd rather it go. I think it's crazy either way, because I've looked a lot into the old Freeway Rick Ross, but I did not look into any of those aspects of it. So those are kind of a mystery to me. Like, I have no idea.
speaking of the girlfriend, there were a lot of comments on Twitter about the way she handled that gun. And she gave a little explanation, that she had somewhat of an interesting past and talked about her mom, but she was vague about certain aspects of it. A lot of people were saying, oh, she's a cop, she's undercover. I heard all kind of different theories online. So those are things I saw on Twitter. She did mention.
Surprised.
Well, she was mentioned. Now that they've given us a little tease that she has an interesting past, yeah, where is that going to go? Because why take the time to even show her doing that with a gun? I have a lot of questions about her. We're she comes in and we're like, what's going on? She's very much. He gives the line of dialogue, which I thought also was interesting, where he talks about how, hey, when we first met, you were cooking, you were doing this and that, then you got in. She's clearly very smart. She's worked her way into Franklin's world. Is there something else, an ulterior motive, or is she just somebody who's looking to live well, and he's a key ticket to that?
Well, I think what Spencer was starting to allude to there, a lot of people are probably saying that because we had a similar scenario in season 2, where someone was handling a gun a little too professionally, and it was and that was part of Luis's operation, and she turned out to be a DEA agent. So it's possibility that the same thing is going on here, that they're still after Teddy, because she was trying to go that far. She was trying to, take down Teddy. Well, she wasn't trying to take down Teddy. She was at first, but then she was trying to go for a bigger bust and trying to get the suppliers and everything. So it may be the same agency following up on her previous research, just trying to get an in, trying to get Franklin suppliers, and potentially trying to even bust Teddy this time.
Well, I think that would tie back into, what was Gustavo's girl's name again?
Luisa. Yeah.
Yeah. That could tie back in with her, them trying to, because she was involved too. So I think that, and there's been lots of hints that she might come back. And I think that would be a way to kind of bring that back up.
Like, that's a good point, because she made a deal in season 2 and she potentially made another here. It wouldn't be off the wall, because they wouldn't just let everything she did go and let her live peacefully in Florida. And if Gustavo found out where she was, through the agency, then they know where she lives, is the thing. And they're not just going to let that go. So potentially she made a deal with someone else.
I want to take a moment to just respect the hell out of Jerome's outfit at that dinner.
Which one? They were all great.
They were, but the dinner one, holy shit. Because he had the coat on at first, I'm like, oh yeah, and then when he took that off, I was like, oh shit. But there was an interesting little subplot this episode specifically about him, in which they discover a rapper who lives in the community, and all his shit is about what's been going down.
That was so good.
And he's using names and everything, and so they flip out, and if you follow the news, there's legitimately been artists in the recent handful of years that have gone down because of lyrics, literally did time as a result. So I thought I enjoyed the nod to that, but they confront this dude and they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? You're literally putting our stuff out there that doesn't need to be out there. And then as the guy's just like, look, it's my passion, it's my work. Later in the episode, Jerome's listening to the music and certain lines. I got two things out of it, and I want your guys' opinion. First off, you could say, well, some of it it's reflective. He's hearing how people view him and his role and everything, and maybe that's affecting him in a negative way. But also, I was like, what if he takes this and he becomes some kind of producer? And I was like, what if he takes this guy and it's like, what, sort of like a Death Row Records type scenario. And so I those were the two things that popped in my mind. I was like, this is an interesting angle. Could he end up saying, what, let's take this music, maybe change some names, but let you, do what you're doing, and I go in that route? Or is it just purely was a way for him to sort of looking in the mirror, if you will, and how he'll make his decisions going forward, it will be based on how he thinks he's perceived, whether that's negatively or not. Those were the things I got out of all that. Any thoughts?
I think when you look at Jerome and his love for music, he wanted to start his own speaker company, like where he was just installing stereos in cars and everything. And NWA started in the mid '80s, I think. Let me look. 86 is when NWA started. So instead of the early '80s where the hip hop and rap was more, it was less about drugs and guns and more about just freestyle rapping. And then in the mid '80s, it became about social injustices. And I think that he sees that in this guy. And I think that it was kind of a bit of an eye opener as far as what he's seeing. And even Leon was talking about when he was talking to Sissy, the, how can or when he was talking to Franklin, talking about how can he celebrate when, Einstein's in the hospital and all these people are, fucked up. He's like, how am I going to go eat steak while all these people are suffering? And I think that that's the route Jerome's going too. He's starting to see that kind of light where they're benefiting off of people's, misery. And I think that he's going to switch it. And I think that he will probably go the music route.
I think, both could be true, that it's, that he may want to go into that industry. And this does take place in '86, if I'm correct.
Yep.
He may want to go in that industry. That's true. And not only that, but he may also be considering, what part of the industry that he currently is in does he actually own? Because a lot of those lyrics, seem to make it sound like, yeah, he's a part of this, but he's very much in the dark and not the guy in control. So Jerome may want something of his own as well.
I would love if they go into another season and that's what it is. He's sort of doing the music thing. That would be cool. Not saying that's what they're doing, but they definitely set up the potential to do something like that. Teddy's he's there, but he's not there as usual. He's very much not a major part of this episode outside of conversations about him. So I don't have a whole lot to say on Teddy. Did y'all have anything as far as Teddy is concerned?
Not really, because we already think he's a piece of shit and very calculating. But I think this episode just furthered the assumption of how calculating he is. It's didn't do anything to dissuade that thought process.
The final thing I have is on Buckley. I talked about him briefly up front as far as the Leon story, but he's causing issues now. And what's Lou and them going to do? She confronts him, and he basically gives her a threat. He's like, "Look, I give me something I can use, or I can make y'all's lives hell." That's going somewhere. I don't know where, but that shit's going somewhere. What do we had some speculation last week if she was gonna take her feud with Franklin and maybe use that. Any more thoughts? There's still beef between the two, at least a little bit. So, what do you guys think as far as this Buckley storyline?
Well, I had mentioned it previously where he gets old freeway Rick Ross gets arrested a couple times. He does not just his first little jail stint that we've seen already in the earlier seasons. He gets arrested again, and then serves like lots of time. So I'm curious if this is how they're writing it into the story, that he basically gets taken down that first time, just to try and get everybody else. I don't know. Well, I don't want to say their foot in the game because they're already in it pretty deep, but it feels like Jerome once again is wanting to take a step back from the drug part of this game, where Louie is just all in. She is 100% trying to become the main pusher of the product, and she's the one that wants to be in charge.
Yeah, but there's and the whole idea of them giving someone up, they've kind of got this code that they follow, and they've mentioned it's very different than Franklin. They have this idea of sort of an honorable way to do business as they see it, and what he's asking for just 100% goes against that. So as far as what she'll do, whether she'll give somebody up or whether, as they seem to be hinting at, whether they're actually just going to try to kill or get rid of him. I guess we'll see.
Well, I wonder if they're going to, because they've aligned with Scully, like they've used him as one of their friends. If they're not just going to use Scully's crazy, kind of like they did with Manboy and everybody else, to kind of pit them against each other. If she can convince Scully, because they saved Scully, if they can convince Scully to basically take him out, so then the heat's not on them, because right now Retribution would look like they retaliated because they got found out, and that would, I think, be bad for business. You got now uh, the FBI would come in, there'd be a lot more state agencies and DEA and everything else should a bunch of cops get killed. However, if a completely different gang member, drug dealer does it, they could probably get away with not tying it to themselves. So I think that this may be where Scully comes back into play.
And I was thinking that, but that's still iffy because that would give them, like, if it's evident that that's what happened, they'd still be cracking down on part of their territory and really cracking down because because a cop was killed and targeted, particularly someone part of that task force. So they may stage it to make it look like he just skipped town or he was involved in something dirty and left or took his own life. They may go about this a little less directly. They may want to. It may be Louis kind of doing the sort of thing that Franklin does. The kind of thing that she wanted to move away from by, starting her own enterprise.
Basically bringing herself back into the fold.
Yeah, essentially, or bringing herself back into the fold and having Franklin take care of it. The way that he typically would.
This is the point in history when the crackdown started hard, and so the Buckley storyline, I think, is going to be tied to, like I said, I have no idea how they're going to deal with him, but I think the crackdowns are going to hit really hard this season as far as people getting locked up and having to reassess how they do business. I'm assuming Buckley's tied to that, but I don't know. Like I said, they could just take him out. But if they do that, they got to be very, very smart about it. Because she knows all of his vices, and she knows what he likes, and it wouldn't be hard for him to OD or what I mean, something like that.
Yep.
That could be a route she takes.
Yeah, I think this is the point where we find out how smart Buckley is, if he has any contingencies in case of that or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, that was about it. It wasn't a whole lot this episode. It was very to the point. Like I said, mostly the sissy stuff, and then sort of the police crackdown stuff. It was a little shorter episode. I believe it was like 40 minutes, 41 minutes, something along those lines. But yeah, any other thoughts on this episode?
I didn't really have anything else. Not story progressing anyway. I just, we praise how well written this show is. I just have a lot of, I don't want to say questions, but it feels like there's not. In other shows, there's a lot of red herrings and misdirections. In this show so far, it really doesn't lead you in a false way or give you a lead and then never follow up on it. Like if they mention something, it feels important. So, his girlfriend handling the gun the way she did, Sissy's meeting with this person who we don't know what they represent just yet, but there's a lot of hints moving forward as to where they're going to go. But we're only just under halfway through the season, and I'm very curious as to where it will progress from here, because
we're getting full 10 episodes.
Yeah, and it seems like those walls may be closing in on, like I know I've mentioned throughout the season that I think that this is it for Teddy, but maybe not, because we're seeing these other elements. Teddy might be the one that helps Franklin tie up some of those loose ends, and it may bring them to a realization. It's like, well, what was the previous guy's name that Teddy killed?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't remember his name though.
Grady, I think. Grady.
Yes,
Yep.
I think yeah.
Yeah, and Franklin made me realize, like, well, the type of situation that we were in, Grady wasn't going to be able to get us out of this because Grady was going to play it too clean. Only Teddy could get us. So Teddy might actually survive this season.
One last little note. I just thought it was interesting and worth bringing up. The next two episodes are part 1 and part 2. It's the Iliad part
Yeah.
1 and part 2. So that's interesting. So those two episodes I'm assuming there'll probably be some big cliffhanger ending in episode 5 going into 6. So something to look forward to.
That's an interesting name for an episode.
Yes. But yeah, that's it, man. We got several more episodes. There's going to be 10. So that's good to know. But yeah, appreciate everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Stay woke.